I love wearing my girlfriend's shirt. Yeah, she's a rocket scientist. Not professionally, that's just what she went to college for. I think I referenced at some point in my vlog series that I describe my sexuality as nerd sexual. I was being really sarcastic, but it's totally true. Hello Epic Hero, I'm Chris. I'm the author of There's a Werewolf at My School, which is a middle grade book written by me and my brother Adam. All about how this kid Harry finds out that there's a werewolf at his school. And what's he gonna do about it? It looks like he's gonna fight it with his bare hands. I thought what would be really fun today is to share how this book came about, because it's me and my brother who wrote it together. Me and my siblings have always done creative projects together. My family we were homeschooled, and so we spent most of the time at home around just our siblings on this little farm. And to entertain ourselves, me and my siblings would do things from record over movies to writing, scripting, playing the music, and everything for our own plays we put on for ourselves. We would make comic books. I started being the person who would try to wrangle people into video projects, into creative projects. If I was writing a book, I would try to get my sisters to be co-authors, or my brothers, if I was making comics, get my younger brothers to be co-creators. I just really, really like creative collaboration. But it was my responsibility on the farm to do a lot of things, but one of which was taking care of the chickens. I was always like the chicken chief, but my assistants would change depending on what younger kid needed some responsibility at the time. First it was Patience was my assistant, and then as she got older, took on her own sort of major responsibility. Then Noah was my assistant, and Adam was my assistant. When Patience was my assistant, I think those did correlate a lot with when I did create a project with them. Like Patience was my assistant, we would brainstorm a lot of these adventure novels. When Noah was my assistant, we would brainstorm these comic books. And when Adam was my assistant, he'd help me give food and water to the chickens. We would brainstorming these fantasy books, because Noah's really into comics, Patience is really into adventures, and what Adam and I had in common was being really into fantasy. What shall it be? I was really into genres, so it was shall it be urban fantasy? Shall it be medieval fantasy? This middle grade is a young adult. Of course, he's this 13-year-old boy just being I just want to make a fantastical world. So at some point, we settled on that it was going to be an urban fantasy. He was into Spider-Man Chronicles, so I was oh yeah, Spider-Man Chronicles, it's the real world, but there's fantasy. And he was yeah, that sounds cool. So I think it was a mix of that and him being into Percy Jackson. We're there could be fantasy kids, but in school. And then after we did that, it just kind of went freely from there. We're how would these mythological personas that you get from ancient, Celtic mythology, how would they then manifest as the personalities of teenagers? So elves are known to be really cute and they fix things in your house, and how would that be manifested into a teenage boy? He probably was that quirky kid, who's always wearing kind of bright colors, seems too young for his age, kind of, awkward and sweet and stuff. And then how would, a gnome, people are known to be grouchy and tunnel and burrowing in your garden, and how would that manifest itself to a teenage boy? And then how would these kids not know that each other were these things? Because a big part of the story that we ended up designing was that it would be a lot of Harry and the other characters trying to find mythological creatures, trying to find each other and figure out who in the school was, who in the school wasn't, it being a secret. So how would these kids hide things? And then what sort of comedy can automatically come from that? I grew up reading a lot of things like Encyclopedia Brown, Mrs. Pigglewiggle. I don't know if you've heard any of these, where each chapter of the children's book was a new story. It was very episodic, very lighthearted. They would go on little adventures, detectives solving little mysteries, but every story kind of has a new story, rather than every chapter kind of has a new story instead of an overarching plot. And even though in the Myth series we definitely have an overarching plot, I think we latched onto that in a way. He also grew up reading those. a sort of like the children's book style, where each book has its own sort of fun adventure the humor comes from the fact that they're kids. One of my most fun parts about the book is how we decided that we were going to like hint that these characters were mythological creatures by having like little tongue-in-cheek comments and references throughout the whole book. So if one of the characters is a gnome, he's like, I just like gardening, okay, you know, or one of the characters that might be a werewolf is like, I like long walks in the moonlight, or like, he's like, oh, how would you like your burger cooked? And he's like, rare, you know. And there's like these little moments just like poking and hinting at who's who, which are a lot of fun. We don't really care that much. I mean, it is supposed to be a surprise and a mystery who's who, but in some sense it's just fun to let, if they know who it is, then people are just gonna have more fun. That's the story of how a werewolf was born. After Adam and I brainstormed about it nights and days, whenever we do the chickens, whenever we do the dishes, coming up with new ideas and funny quirks about people's family. We actually went back and forth writing chapters and editing each other's chapters for like 2 years. And then even when I moved to Washington, we would back and forth email, and then when I collected all the pieces in Washington, sort of pushed them together and made sure that the there were no plot holes, and that the style was sort of streamlined, then sent it back to him, he edited it, and then we've been like editing and formatting and proofreading and all the technical stuff ever since. So yes, it's really, really fun because it was something we like bonded over and had a lot of fun with, but the process is definitely more streamlined now because first of all, we know the characters, we know what we want to happen in like the next several books, and so it's just going to be a matter of, and we're also not going to do chapter by chapter, like he's going to write a book, I'm going to write a book, etc. And yeah, it's going to go on from there. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you want to watch more of this artistic nerd stumbling through life, art, and geekdom, then hit subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be notified when I make new videos. If you want to help support me, my Patreon is in the link below. So you know, I can afford nice shiny covers like this, and you can get your credit in the book or in my YouTube videos, and you know, sneak peeks into future projects. And until I see you again, always remember that we are epic heroes today and every day of our lives. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye! His friend's scared. It's scoopless in the background. Not sure. Family friendly word for that. Yeah, she's a rocket scientist.